Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today with one simple but powerful truth. Your best teacher, your most valuable lesson, isn't something you'll find in a textbook. It's not a professor in a classroom or some slick motivational speaker on YouTube. No, your best teacher is your last mistake. That's right, the one you failed to avoid. The one that left you with scars, the one that stung, that burned, that made you question everything you thought you knew. That mistake, that failure, it's the gift that keeps on giving if you're willing to learn from it. Now, I know we live in a world where everyone talks about success like it's this straight line, like it's something you just reach if you do the right thing at the right time. But the reality is that success is built on a pile of failures. Those mistakes, they shape us. They humble us, they teach us what no one else can. So today I want to talk to you about why your last mistake might just be the most valuable lesson you've ever received. A mistake is not a defeat. It's not the end of the road. It's not a sign that you should throw in the towel. No, a mistake is not a reflection of who you are or a sentence passed on your potential. Too many people get caught in the lie that when they mess up, it's over, that they've reached the final chapter. You know the kind of people I'm talking about, right? The ones who make a mistake and instead of owning it, instead of learning from it, they fold, they quit, they walk away from the fight as if there's no reason to try again. But that's not how the world works. That's not how success works. A failure is only a defeat if you allow it to be. I'm telling you right now, as long as you're still breathing, it's not over. As long as you're still standing, you've got more in you. You can learn, adapt, and grow. You have the power to turn every mistake into a lesson that will make you stronger. If you're willing to get up, if you're willing to dust yourself off and ask the hard questions, what went wrong? Why did I fail? Then you'll learn more in those moments than you ever will in the moments when things are going smoothly. Too many people are afraid of mistakes because they've been taught that they should always avoid failure at all costs. But here's the thing, if you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself. If you're not making mistakes, it means you're playing it safe, staying within your comfort zone and never challenging your limits. And let me tell you something, if you never challenge your limits, you'll never find out just how far you can go. Let's take Thomas Edison, for example. You've heard the stories, right? He's the man who changed the world with the invention of the light bulb. But what they don't always tell you is that he failed over and over and over again. He didn't just fail once or twice or even 10 times. He failed over 1,000 times, 1,000 attempts at creating a light bulb that worked. That's a lot of mistakes. Most people would have given up after the first few. Heck, most people would have walked away after the first 100, but not Edison. He didn't see those failures as the end. He didn't see them as reasons to quit. He saw them as opportunities to learn. When he was asked about all of his failures, Edison said something that still resonates today. I have not failed. I've just found 1,0,0,0,0 ways that won't work. Think about that for a second. He wasn't beating himself up. He wasn't looking at each failed attempt as a sign that he was weak or incapable. No, he was looking at each failure as a lesson, something that was teaching him exactly what he needed to know to eventually succeed. If Edison had given up after the first 10 failures, we wouldn't be living in a world with light bulbs. We wouldn't have had the electric power that changed industries, societies, and economy. But he didn't quit. And that's the lesson we all need to learn. Your mistakes, your failures are the same. They are not signs that you're broken or that you're not good enough. They are your teachers. They will teach you things that success never will. But too often, people let their mistakes define them. They let a single mistake tell them who they are and what they're capable of. I failed at this project, so I must not be cut out for this job. Or I messed up in that relationship, so I must not be worthy of love. And then they give up, they walk away, or they settle for less than what they're truly capable of. They forget that mistakes are not the final word. They forget that they're just stepping stones on the way to success. Mistakes give us the opportunity to grow, to learn, to develop. But that only happens if we're willing to take the lesson, if we're willing to sit with the discomfort, the pain, and the frustration of the mistake, and ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? How can I be better next time? I want you to think about the last time you made a mistake. I want you to think about how you felt when it happened, how you might have felt like the world was crashing down, like you'd lost everything. But now, look at that mistake with a different lens. Don't see it as a defeat. See it as a lesson in disguise. What did you learn? How has that failure made you stronger? How has it shaped you into the person you are today? Because here's the truth. Your mistakes don't define you. They refine you. Every failure, every misstep, every wrong turn you take in life has the potential to teach you something important. It's just a matter of whether you're willing to learn, if you're open to seeing that every failure is part of the journey towards something greater. You're not supposed to get everything right on the first try. You're not supposed to be perfect. Perfection is a lie, a myth that keeps too many people stuck in place. The real truth is that success isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about learning from them, using them to fuel your growth, and rising stronger than you were before. Let me tell you something else. Success is messy. It's not this smooth, perfect path that some people would have you believe. Success is about taking risks, making mistakes, and getting back up. It's about having the courage to try again, even when you've failed, and the wisdom to recognize that every failure is a lesson waiting to be learned. So the next time you make a mistake, don't look at it as the end of the road. Don't look at it as a sign that you're not cut out for greatness. No, that mistake is your teacher. It's there to help you become who you were meant to be. Embrace it, learn from it, and then keep moving forward. Because if you can learn from your mistakes, if you can turn them into lessons, then you will find yourself closer to success than you ever imagined. Remember this, mistakes are not the end. They are not the final word on your potential or your abilities. They are just the beginning of your journey. So take every mistake, every failure, and use it as fuel to push yourself further, to rise higher, and to reach beyond what you thought was possible. That's how you turn failure into success. That's how you turn your last mistake into your greatest lesson. Let me be real with you for a second. Mistakes hurt. They hurt deep. They sting in a way that cuts through your soul, making you question everything. The pain is real. When you mess up, when you fall short of your own expectations, or when you fail in front of others, it feels like a punch in the gut. And it doesn't just hurt physically. It hurts mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's the kind of pain that makes you want to curl up and hide, to pretend it didn't happen, to sweep it under the rug and move on as if nothing is wrong. But here's the truth. If you run from that pain, if you bury it deep down inside, you're missing the opportunity to learn from it. Pain isn't something to be afraid of. Pain is not something to avoid. Pain, as much as it hurts, is trying to teach you something. You see, when you feel that sting, when you're carrying the weight of a mistake you made, your body, your mind, your spirit, they're telling you something important. They're telling you that this is the moment where growth happens. This is where the transformation takes place. When I say embrace the pain, I don't mean you should go looking for trouble. I'm not telling you to go out and purposely fail. But what I am saying is, when you make that mistake, when the pain hits, don't turn away from it. Don't run from it. Don't ignore it. Don't numb yourself with distractions. Lean into it, feel it, reflect on it, because that pain is your guide. It's your compass, pointing you toward growth. Now, I know a lot of people hear that and think, why would I want to embrace pain? I've been through enough, and I get it. Life can hit you hard. You can go through moments where it feels like you've been knocked down and beaten up, emotionally drained, physically exhausted, and mentally overwhelmed. But what I need you to understand is that pain doesn't last forever unless you let it. Pain is temporary. It's a part of the process, but it's not permanent. You get to decide how long you let that pain control you. You get to decide whether you're going to use it to fuel your next move or whether you're going to let it defeat you. The great leaders, the people who rise to the top, they understand this truth. They understand that pain is a part of the process. They know that they will not grow without it. They know that in order to reach new heights, they have to go through some of the hardest moments of their lives. But they also know this: every ounce of pain, every bruise, every scar is an opportunity to learn. And that's the key. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about understanding what it's trying to teach you. Take a moment and think about one of the greatest basketball players to ever live, Michael Jordan. Yes, I'm talking about him. You probably already know the story, but let me remind you. Michael Jordan, the man who went on to dominate the basketball world, was once cut from his high school basketball team. Let me say that again. He was cut from his high school team. Now picture that. Here's this young kid who has dreams, who has talent, who has all the potential in the world, and yet he was told, "You're not good enough." Can you imagine how that felt? Can you imagine what it did to his confidence, to his sense of self-worth? I bet it crushed him. I bet it stung so bad that it made him question everything. But here's what I want you to focus on. Michael Jordan didn't quit. He didn't walk away from the game. He didn't say, "Well, I guess basketball just isn't for me." No, he took that pain, he took that rejection, and he used it as fuel. He turned that mistake into a lesson. He used that moment as a springboard to push himself to become one of the greatest players the game has ever seen. And that's what I'm talking about. That's the power of embracing the pain. Jordan didn't let it break him. He didn't let it define him. He didn't let that failure become the end of his story. He used it to grow, to get better, to come back stronger. Think about the kind of strength it takes to embrace rejection, to face your own failure and say, "This doesn't define me. I'm going to learn from this and keep moving forward." That's the kind of resilience that builds champions, that builds greatness. And that's what you have within you too. The pain from your mistakes has the potential to ignite something in you, to spark a fire that drives you to new heights. But only if you're willing to face it head on. Only if you're willing to sit with it, to reflect on it, and to ask yourself, what do I need to learn from this? I'm telling you, the mistake you made yesterday, the pain you're feeling right now, it's not the end of your story. It's just a chapter, and it's up to you to decide how you're going to turn that chapter into a victory. Will you let it break you? Will you let it make you believe that you're not capable, that you don't have what it takes? Or will you embrace the pain, learn from it, and rise stronger than before? Because that's the secret right there. That's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. It's not the absence of pain. It's the ability to embrace it, to learn from it, to use it to fuel the journey ahead. So when life throws that punch, when you make a mistake and the pain feels like too much to bear, don't run from it. Don't shut it out. Don't pretend it doesn't hurt. Acknowledge it, learn from it, grow from it. Because that pain, that mistake is not a sign of failure. It's an opportunity to become the best version of yourself. Just like Michael Jordan, just like every great leader, every great achiever, you have the power to take that pain and turn it into something powerful. You can let it fuel you. You can let it push you past your limits, past your doubts, and onto a path of greatness. But only if you're willing to embrace it. Only if you're willing to face it and ask yourself the most important question: what am I going to do with this? Pain is not permanent. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your teacher. And if you let it, it will show you how to rise, how to fight, how to keep moving forward. But you've got to embrace it. We live in a world where success is often idolized, celebrated, and even worshipped. We look at people who have made it and think they've got it all figured out. We watch them walk across the stage, get their awards, and get all the glory, and we assume that's the end of the story. But here's the thing. Success, especially when it comes too easily, can make you believe that you're invincible. It can make you think that you've got all the answers, that you can't fail, and that you're untouchable. And that kind of mindset is dangerous. It's not real. because the truth is, we all fall short. We all stumble. We all make mistakes. And the real power lies not in pretending we're perfect, but in learning from those mistakes, in embracing them, and in understanding that our failures don't define us, they refine us. One of the greatest gifts mistakes give us is humility. It's easy to get caught up in the hype of success, to start thinking that we've somehow figured out this thing called life. But when we make a mistake, when we hit a wall, when things don't go as planned, that's when reality hits. That's when we're reminded that we're human. That's when we realize we don't have all the answers. And that's not a weakness, that's a strength. Humility doesn't come from having it all together. Humility comes from realizing you don't have it all together and then being willing to learn from it. Mistakes teach us that. They force us to strip away all the illusions we've built up. They force us to get real with ourselves. Think about the times you've messed up, whether it was at work, in a relationship, or just in life. What happened afterward? Did you stop and reflect? Did you really ask yourself, what went wrong? Why didn't I see this coming? What was I missing? Because if you can ask yourself those questions, if you can have the courage to face the hard truths about what happened, then you're opening yourself up to growth. You see, mistakes take us to a place we don't often want to go, a place of vulnerability. When everything is going right, when everything is smooth, it's easy to pat yourself on the back and say, I'm doing great. But when things go wrong, when you stumble, you can no longer hide behind the illusion of perfection. You have to face yourself, and that's powerful. It's the kind of thing that molds your character, that shapes you into someone who's not just going through the motions, but someone who's actually learning and evolving. And that's the real gift of mistakes. They offer you a new perspective. They give you a lens through which you can see the world more clearly. When you succeed, everything looks easy. When you fail, everything looks different. It forces you to take a step back and evaluate what happened. It forces you to see things from a different angle, from a place of honesty and introspection. You start asking yourself questions that challenge your assumptions, that make you rethink your strategies, that push you to do better next time. This kind of self-reflection is the foundation of growth. It's the foundation of success. It's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about how you handle them when they come. Do you run from them, or do you stand up and face them head on? Do you let your mistakes break you, or do you let them teach you? Do you let pride get in the way of your learning, or do you allow yourself to be humbled? When we make mistakes, we're also given the chance to practice self-compassion. That's a part of the humility that comes from failure. Instead of beating yourself up over what went wrong, you have the opportunity to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? That's a powerful shift in perspective. You stop seeing your mistakes as evidence of your inadequacy, and you start seeing them as opportunities for growth, for change, for improvement. It's not about being perfect. It's not about getting everything right. It's about having the humility to acknowledge when you've fallen short and the courage to stand up, learn, and keep going. That's what builds character. That's what makes you stronger. And from that place of humility, you gain a perspective that no success can ever offer you. Because when everything's going right, it's easy to get distracted, to lose sight of the bigger picture. But when things go wrong, when you make a mistake, you are forced to reassess, to refocus, and to realign yourself with what really matters. I want you to think about someone you admire, someone who's been successful in their field, whether it's in sports, business, or any other area of life. Now think about their journey. I bet you they didn't just get there by luck. I bet you they didn't just wake up one day at the top of their game. They've made mistakes, they've stumbled, they've fallen. But what sets them apart is how they handle those mistakes. They don't let failure knock them down for good. They don't let mistakes define them. They learn from them, they rise from them. And with every setback, they become more humble, more grounded, and more equipped for success. That's the power of mistakes. They teach you humility. They teach you that you're not invincible, that you're not infallible, and that's okay. That's actually the key to long-lasting success. You've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to make mistakes. But more than that, you've got to be willing to learn from them, to grow from them, and to carry those lessons with you as you move forward. And when you do that, when you take those lessons and apply them, you become something even greater than you were before. You become someone who not only knows how to succeed, but someone who knows how to rise after a fall. And that is the ultimate strength. We all face setbacks. It's part of the game. We all mess up, fall short, and make mistakes that leave us feeling defeated, even vulnerable. But let me tell you something. The most important thing you can do when you make a mistake is not stay down. You've got to get back up. And I don't mean getting up just for the sake of it. I mean getting up with everything you've got, knowing that you have the power to rise above anything that's trying to keep you down. That's resilience. That's the force within you that refuses to be broken, that refuses to let failure define who you are. It's the ability to bounce back, to keep going, no matter how many times you fall. And that's something every single one of us can choose to tap into. Think about it for a second. Life doesn't care about how many times you fall. It doesn't care about how many mistakes you make, how many doors get slammed in your face, or how many times you get knocked down. Life only cares about one thing: how many times you get back up. And getting back up, that's a choice. It's not an automatic response. It's a conscious decision. It's a choice you make in that moment when everything inside you wants to stay down, when the weight of your failure feels too heavy to carry. You choose to rise anyway. You choose to stand up and face the world again, and that is where real strength lies. This is where resilience comes in. Resilience is that inner fire that refuses to be extinguished, no matter how much the world tries to put it out. It's what allows you to look at your mistakes, to look at your failures and say, I'm not done. This is not the end of my story. I will rise and I will keep moving forward. It's about adjusting. It's about learning from what went wrong and using that knowledge to make sure you don't repeat the same mistake. It's about digging deep and finding the courage to try again. It's not easy, but nothing worth having ever is. Let me give you an example that I know will resonate with you. Oprah Winfrey, one of the most influential figures in television history. But you probably didn't know that early in her career, she was told she wasn't fit for TV. Imagine that. The woman who would go on to change the lives of millions, to create a platform that empowered people across the globe, was told she didn't have what it takes. She was told she wasn't cut out for the very thing she was destined to do. Now, that's a blow to the ego. That's a mistake in her career that could have broken her. That rejection, that moment of failure, could have been the moment she decided to walk away from her dream. But she didn't. She didn't let that mistake define her. She didn't let it determine her worth. Instead, she used it as fuel. She got back up and she kept moving forward. And today, Oprah is not only known as a talk show host, but as a force of nature, someone whose influence and resilience have inspired generations. You see, that's what resilience does. It turns mistakes into stepping stones. It takes failures and transforms them into opportunities to rise higher. But here's the thing about resilience. It's not just about bouncing back after failure. It's about learning how to adapt, how to grow, and how to continue moving forward. Resilience is not about pretending that the setback didn't hurt. It's about acknowledging the pain, feeling it, and deciding that you're still going to rise anyway. You're still going to keep going. And when you do that, you learn how to turn every mistake into a lesson that brings you closer to your goals. Think about the times you've failed. We all have those moments, the ones that test us to our core, the moments when the mistake feels like too much to bear. Maybe it's a job you didn't get, a dream you thought was within your grasp but slipped away, or a decision that sent you down the wrong path. But every single one of those moments, as painful as they are tests. Life is testing your ability to bounce back. Life is asking, can you rise above this? Can you move forward stronger than before? And the answer, if you have resilience, is yes. The world is full of people who have faced incredible obstacles, who have fallen hard, but who chose to get back up. They chose to keep moving forward, and they turned their mistakes into the very thing that propelled them to greatness. They learned how to adjust, to grow, to turn each failure into a tool to build their success. But resilience doesn't come from avoiding mistakes. It doesn't come from trying to be perfect. It comes from knowing that you will make mistakes, but those mistakes will never break you. It comes from knowing that you're stronger than any failure you face, that your ability to rise will always outweigh your ability to fall. And that's a power inside of you, a power that's waiting to be tapped into every time you face adversity. So I ask you, what will you do when life knocks you down? When that mistake hits, when things don't go as planned, are you going to stay down? Are you going to let it defeat you? Or are you going to get back up, dust yourself off, and show the world just how much strength you have within you? It's easy to stay down. It's easy to let mistakes convince you that you're not good enough, that you're not capable. But real strength, real resilience is about getting back up again and again and again. It's about making that choice every single time to keep moving forward, no matter how hard it gets. And that's how you turn mistakes into stepping stones. That's how you transform every setback into fuel for your future. And once you do that, once you make resilience your weapon, nothing can stop you. Nothing. Real success, I want you to understand this. It isn't about being perfect. It's not about crossing every T and dotting every I. It's not about doing everything right the first time or even the second, third, or 10th time. No, real success is about being willing to fail, to make mistakes, and most importantly, to learn from them. Because here's the cold truth. If you spend your life trying to avoid mistakes, trying to stay in that safe, controlled space where nothing goes wrong, you'll never grow. You'll never take the steps that will lead you to the life you truly want. You'll stay stuck. The thing that separates those who win from those who fall short is the ability to face failure, to embrace it, and then to rise from it. Let me say this again. Your best teacher is your last mistake. It's the failure, the misstep, the moment when everything seemed to fall apart that will push you to look within. It will force you to ask, what did I do wrong? How can I be better? What do I need to change to make sure this never happens again? That's the moment of true learning. That's when you grow. Not when things are easy, not when everything is smooth sailing, but when you face something tough, something that challenges you to be better, something that calls you to dig deeper. If you want to experience true progress, you've got to be willing to risk. You've got to be willing to step into the unknown, to take those chances that others are too afraid to take. If you're always walking around trying to stay safe, trying to keep everything neat and tidy, you'll never get anywhere. Progress doesn't come from playing it safe. It doesn't come from avoiding mistakes. Progress comes from stepping out, from making the bold decisions, from being willing to take a shot even when you don't know for sure what's going to happen next. Let me remind you, every success you see out there, whether it's in business, sports, the arts, or life, every single one of those successes has been paved with mistakes. I don't care how polished or perfect it looks from the outside, the road to real achievement is lined with stumbles, failures, and yes, mistakes. The people you admire, the ones you look up to, the ones who have made it, they're not special because they never failed. They're special because they knew how to use their failures as fuel. They learned how to turn their mistakes into stepping stones towards something greater. They didn't stop after one failure, or two, or 10. They kept going, they kept learning, and eventually they got it right. Take a moment and think about the people you admire in your life. Think about the ones who've succeeded, who've built empires or achieved greatness. Think about athletes, artists, business moguls. They didn't get there by being perfect. They didn't get there by avoiding mistakes. In fact, they probably failed more times than most people ever will. But what set them apart wasn't their ability to avoid failure. It was their ability to get back up after each fall. to keep learning, and to continue pushing forward. Take Michael Jordan, for instance. Here's a guy who, as a high school freshman, was cut from his basketball team. Now, I want you to imagine the pain of that. Imagine being told you're not good enough to even make the team. That's a tough pill to swallow. But did he quit? Did he give up on basketball? No. He used that rejection as fire. He used that mistake to fuel his determination, and look where it led him. Michael Jordan didn't just become the greatest basketball player to ever play the game because he was naturally talented. He became the greatest because he learned from every failure, from every mistake. He took each one and used it to push him closer to his ultimate goal. What about Oprah Winfrey? She was told early on in her career that she wasn't fit for TV. Can you imagine that? The woman who would become one of the most powerful voices in the world of television and media, and she was told she wasn't good enough? What did she do? Did she quit? No. She took that mistake, she learned from it, and she got back up. She kept going, and now look at her. An icon, a legend, someone who's influenced millions. It's the same for every person who's ever reached the heights of success. They didn't just wake up on top. They didn't just find success handed to them. They failed, they made mistakes, and they learned. They understood that mistakes aren't the end of the road, they're part of the process. Mistakes are the path that leads to success. It's only through those mistakes that we find out what we're really made of. And let me tell you something else. Mistakes force you to grow in ways that success never will. Think about it. When things are going well, when everything is flowing, you don't have to dig deep. You're just going with the flow. But when things go wrong, when you stumble, you have no choice but to dig deeper. You have to look at what happened, learn from it, and make the necessary changes to do better next time. So, if you're sitting here, afraid of making mistakes, afraid of failing, understand that you're only holding yourself back. You're not going to get to where you want to go by avoiding the hard stuff. You're not going to get to true success by playing it safe. The road to success is filled with setbacks, with moments of doubt, and yes, with mistakes. But those mistakes are the key to your growth. They are the things that will shape you into the person you need to become. They are the things that will prepare you for the success that's waiting for you on the other side. So embrace your mistakes. Don't fear them. Don't run from them. Learn from them. And use them as stepping stones, as lessons that will guide you to the life you truly want to create. Because in the end, the greatest success isn't found in perfection. It's found in your ability to rise, to learn, and to keep moving forward, no matter how many times you fall. Your mistakes are not a reflection of your failure. They are the foundation for your success. I want to leave you with a question today. What will you do with your last mistake? That mistake, that failure, that moment when you felt like you were at your lowest. What will you do with it? Will you let it define you? Will you let it break you? Will you let that one misstep, that one wrong turn convince you that you're not good enough, that you'll never make it? Or will you stand up, take a deep breath, and ask yourself the most important question you could ask in that moment? What can I learn from this? Because here's the thing, your best teacher is waiting. It's not waiting for some moment of victory or triumph. It's not waiting for you to finally get everything perfect. It's waiting for you to stop, take a hard look at what went wrong, and ask yourself what you can take from it. That's where the real growth happens. That's where the real strength is built. It's not in the easy wins. It's not in the smooth paths. It's in the mistakes, the setbacks, the things that make you question yourself. It's in those moments that you find the lessons that will shape your future. I know it's easy to want to avoid mistakes. It's easy to want to keep everything neat and tidy, to make sure that nothing goes wrong. But if you're living like that, you're not truly living. You're not growing. You're not pushing yourself to the limits. The only way to truly progress, to truly move forward, is to embrace those mistakes, to look at them head on, and to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? There's power in those mistakes. There's strength in being able to stand up after you've fallen. after you've faced disappointment. Because every time you get back up, you build resilience, you build character, and you build a future that's brighter than the one you could have had if you stayed on the sidelines, afraid to make a mistake. So when life throws you a curveball, when that last mistake seems like it's too much to handle, don't walk away from it. Don't turn your back on it. Look at it straight in the eyes and ask yourself, what can I take from this? Because every mistake is a lesson, and every lesson is a step forward. It's part of the process. It's part of becoming who you were always meant to be. Your best teacher is not in the perfect moments of glory. Your best teacher is sitting right there in the mistakes. And when you realize that, when you embrace it, you'll start to understand something. You're stronger than you think. You're capable of so much more than you realize, because each mistake doesn't break you. It makes you. It pushes you to go further, to grow bigger, to reach higher. So I ask you once again, what will you do with your last mistake? Will you let it keep you down, or will you let it teach you? Will you let it be the thing that defines your future, or will you stand up, dust yourself off, and use it as fuel for your next move? Because I'll tell you right now, if you can do that, if you can look at your mistakes and see them for what they truly are, lessons waiting to be learned, you will not be stopped. You'll keep growing, you'll keep rising, and eventually you'll find yourself standing in the kind of success that only comes to those who refuse to give up. Thank you.